Hello everyone, before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's dive into today's heartwarming and dramatic tale. It was a chilly evening in New York City. The wind howled through the narrow streets, and rain began to fall in soft, steady sheets. In the midst of the bustling crowd, Emma Brooks hurried across the sidewalk, clutching her purse tightly. The sound of her heels clicking against the wet pavement mixed with the distant hum of traffic, but despite the chaos of the city, Emma felt completely alone. She pulled her coat tighter around herself, feeling the cold seep through the fabric. As she turned the corner, her phone buzzed, and she quickly glanced at it. Another reminder. Her blind date. She had almost forgotten. It had taken a lot of convincing from her best friend Jenny, but here she was, about to meet someone who could change her life. She sighed, checking the time. She was running late, as usual. There was always something in the way, always something more important than her own happiness. She reached the restaurant, its warm golden glow a stark contrast to the dreary weather outside. The hostess smiled and handed her a menu, guiding her to a small table by the window. The soft hum of conversation and the clinking of silverware filled the air as Emma settled into her seat. She looked around, scanning the room, feeling the weight of every pair of eyes that briefly glanced her way. She was out of place here. Her dress, second-hand and slightly too tight, wasn't meant for a place like this. But she was here, and she was going to make it work. Her heart began to race as she checked her phone again. The message from Jenny read, "He's sitting at table 7. Just go up to him and say hi." Emma couldn't help but laugh at her friend's over-enthusiastic encouragement. Jenny always thought she could just walk up to anyone and start a conversation. Emma, on the other hand, was more reserved, more nervous. She looked at the table number. Table 7. Her eyes locked on the man sitting by the window, looking at his phone, completely unaware of her gaze. He was dressed sharply in a suit, his hair neatly styled. He looked well, out of place in the sea of casual diners around him. Emma's palms began to sweat as she slowly walked over to him. "Hi, you must be Kevin," she said, forcing a smile as she stood awkwardly beside him. The man looked up at her, his eyes widening slightly before he blinked in confusion. Hi, Emma," he said, clearly taken aback. Emma immediately felt embarrassed, realizing her mistake. "Oh my gosh, I'm sorry," she mumbled, her cheeks turning red. "I thought you were someone else. Tool, just go back to my table." No, it's fine," he said quickly, standing up. "It's just a misunderstanding, right?" He smiled, and there was something warm in his expression, something genuine. "Honestly, I'm glad you came over. Blind dates are, well, they're always a little awkward, right?" Emma couldn't help but laugh nervously. "Yeah, they're definitely awkward." She hesitated before sitting back down. "So, what do you do?" she asked, trying to steer the conversation back on track. She had to get through this, even if it was a mess from the start. The man shrugged. "I work in tech. You know, apps, coding, that kind of thing." He smiled, clearly trying to make her feel at ease. Emma grinned. "I'm terrible with computers," she said, laughing. "Honestly, I'm lucky if I can get my phone to stop freezing up. I'm a waitress. Not exactly glamorous, but it pays the bills." He chuckled. "I'm sure you're doing just fine." They both sat there for a moment, exchanging polite smiles, and Emma realized that despite the awkward start, she was actually enjoying the conversation. For once, things weren't as terrible as they seemed. Maybe it wasn't such a disaster after all. But just as she started to relax, her phone buzzed again. She glanced down, and her stomach dropped. It was another message from Jenny. Hey, Emma, where are you? I'm at table 7, looking forward to meeting you, Kevin. Emma's face flushed with embarrassment as she looked up at the man, who was still smiling, completely unaware of her mistake. You're not Kevin, are you? She whispered, her voice barely audible. The man's smile faltered for a moment, his eyes reflecting a mix of guilt and confusion. No, I'm not Kevin. He sighed, but I'm glad we talked. I don't know, it's nice to meet someone who's real. Emma's heart raced, her nerves returning full force. She stood up quickly. I'm so sorry, she muttered, practically running for the door. As she stepped outside into the rain, she couldn't help but feel like a fool. She had messed up a blind date before it had even begun. Her cheeks burned with embarrassment, and she berated herself for being so careless. But little did she know, this wasn't the last time she would see him. The next day, Emma sat in her small apartment, the sound of rain still drumming against the window. She couldn't stop thinking about what had happened the night before. Her mind replayed the awkwardness over and over again, the strange man she had mistaken for Kevin, the way he smiled at her, and the way she had run out of the restaurant. She buried her face in her hands, feeling embarrassed all over again. How could she have made such a mistake? She sighed and glanced at her phone. No new messages. Jenny had sent her a few texts about how awkward it was to meet someone and then leave right away, but Emma hadn't replied. It was too embarrassing. She just couldn't face it. The clock ticked loudly, and Emma's stomach growled. She got up, grabbed her coat, and headed out the door. As she walked down the street, the chilly air wrapped around her, the wet pavement reflecting the city lights. It was a dreary day, just like yesterday, and she couldn't shake the feeling that nothing in her life ever seemed to change. She passed by a cafe, and the warm scent of fresh coffee filled the air. She stopped for a moment, debating whether to go inside for a quick pick-me-up. But then she heard a familiar voice behind her. Emma, hey! Jenny called out, jogging toward her. I thought I'd find you here. Are you okay? Emma turned to face her best friend, giving her a tight smile. Yeah, I'm fine, she lied. Just a little tired. I didn't sleep much last night. Jenny raised an eyebrow. Tired, huh? Is that what you're calling it? Look, I know you're upset about what happened last night, but it's not the end of the world. Seriously, he didn't seem mad. If anything, he looked kind of interested. Emma groaned. I can't believe I did that. I made such a fool of myself. He probably thinks I'm crazy. And besides, what's the point? He's probably some rich tech guy who's used to women throwing themselves at him. I'm just a waitress. It'll never work out. Jenny shook her head, grabbing Emma by the shoulders. Emma, you have to stop doing this. You're better than that. You have no idea what he's thinking. And besides, who cares if he's rich? Maybe he's looking for someone real, someone like you. Emma opened her mouth to protest, but before she could say anything, Jenny continued. You know what? Forget all that. You need to get out of your head and do something for yourself. Look, I know this might sound crazy, but I think you should text him. I mean, what do you have to lose? Emma stared at her friend, her mind racing. Text him? She couldn't even imagine doing that. But deep down, part of her felt like maybe, just maybe, Jenny was right. What if this was an opportunity she couldn't afford to let slip away? After a long pause, Emma reluctantly agreed. Fine. I'll text him. But I'm not getting my hopes up. Later that evening, Emma found herself sitting at her small kitchen table, her phone in front of her. She stared at the screen, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. What should she say? She wasn't exactly great at this whole texting thing. But with a deep breath, she started typing. Hey, I'm the girl who sat at the wrong table last night. I'm really sorry about that. I just wanted to say that I had a nice conversation with you, even though it was a little awkward. If you're up for it, maybe we could try again? Emma. She stared at the message for a moment, hesitating. Then, with a deep breath, she hit send. Her heart pounded in her chest as she waited for a reply. She had no idea if he would respond, or if he'd just think she was crazy for texting him. But to her surprise, within seconds, her phone buzzed. It was a message from him. Hey, Emma, no need to apologize. I thought last night was nice, despite the mix-up. I'd like to give it another try. How about we meet for coffee tomorrow? Liam. Emma's jaw dropped as she stared at the message, her mind racing. Liam? Was this really happening? The man from last night was actually interested in seeing her again? The disbelief washed over her, quickly replaced by a rush of excitement and nerves. Could this be real? She quickly typed back, that sounds great. Let's meet at the cafe on 5th and O. I'll be there at 10. As soon as she hit send, Emma's nerves kicked in again. What had she gotten herself into? She wasn't sure, but for the first time in a long time, she felt a little bit of hope stirring inside her. The next day, Emma arrived at the cafe early, her heart racing. She could hardly believe she was about to meet him again. She looked around, trying to calm herself. What if he didn't show? What if this was all just another mistake? But just as she was about to convince herself to leave, she saw him walk through the door. Liam. He looked the same, maybe even better in the daylight. He smiled when he saw her, and Emma's heart skipped a beat. There he was, not the guy she'd thought he was, but someone she was starting to believe she might actually like. Hey, Emma, he said, his voice warm and genuine. I'm glad you decided to give this a second chance. She smiled, feeling a little more at ease now. Me too, Liam. They sat down, and the conversation picked up easily from where they had left off the night before. And for the first time in a long while, Emma felt like maybe, just maybe, she was exactly where she was meant to be. Over the next few weeks, Emma found herself meeting Liam more and more. Each time they met, it felt easier, like the conversation was meant to flow between them. They met for coffee, grabbed lunch at little places around the city, and even went for long walks in the park. Emma couldn't deny there was something about him. He was different from the other guys she'd dated. He was kind, funny, and there was this warmth in his eyes that made her feel like she was the only person in the room. But she couldn't shake the nagging feeling that there was something he wasn't telling her. He was so guarded, so private about his life, especially when it came to his work. One afternoon, they were sitting at a cafe, sipping their drinks. The sun was shining through the large windows, and Emma felt the heat of the day creeping through her jacket. She laughed at something Liam had said, but then, she noticed it again. That flicker of hesitation in his eyes whenever she asked about his job. So, she started, stirring her coffee, you keep saying you work in tech. What exactly do you do? I mean, you're so secretive about it. She smiled playfully, trying to make it sound light, but there was a part of her that really wanted to know. Liam shifted uncomfortably in his seat, his eyes diverting to the window for a moment. I told you, I work on projects. I deal with tech stuff, he said, his voice a little too casual, too vague. Emma frowned slightly. That's it? Just projects? Liam, you can't be that mysterious all the time. I mean, we've been hanging out for weeks, and you've told me so much about your life, but nothing about your work. Liam looked at her, his expression softening. It's not that I'm hiding anything, Emma. It's just well, I like to keep some things private. His voice trailed off as he pushed his cup forward, his fingers tapping lightly on the rim. Emma leaned back in her chair, studying him. She had never been one to push people, but something about the way Liam held himself so carefully, so guarded made her feel like there was something important he was keeping from her. She let out a soft sigh, deciding to let it go for now. Okay, she said, offering a small smile. I get it. Just don't keep everything from me, all right? He nodded, offering her a reassuring smile. I won't. I promise. But despite his words, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. She was falling for him, but what was he afraid of? What was he hiding behind those walls he had built? A few days later, Emma was walking through the park when she spotted a group of people gathered around a small fountain. She noticed Liam standing at the edge of the crowd, talking to a few men in business suits. She walked over to him, and as she got closer, she overheard a piece of their conversation. "We're finalizing the partnership today," one of the men said. "Everything is set, Liam. You're sure about this, right?" Liam smiled, but there was something unsettling about the way he nodded. "I'm sure," he said, his voice smooth, confident, but distant. "It's all part of the plan." Emma stopped in her tracks, confusion bubbling up inside her. "Part of the plan," she muttered to herself. She took another step closer, but before she could hear more, Liam turned around and spotted her. His face lit up with that familiar, warm smile. "Hey," he said, walking toward her. "I didn't know you were here. What are you up to?" Emma tried to smile back, but her mind was racing. "I was just taking a walk," she said, though her heart was pounding. The whole interaction had felt so businesslike, so detached. And the way he had spoken, like he was playing a part, didn't sit right with her. "Come on, I'll walk you back," he said, guiding her away from the group of men. As they walked, Emma couldn't help but ask, what was that about? "The plan? What are you involved in, Liam?" Liam paused for a moment, his jaw tightening before he spoke. "It's nothing, Emma. Just some business stuff. Don't worry about it." He reached for her hand, squeezing it reassuringly, but Emma couldn't shake the feeling that he was keeping something important from her. She pulled her hand away, trying to hide the frustration she felt. "You can't keep brushing me off, Liam. I'm not stupid. I know there's more to you than just tech projects." He looked at her, his face softening for a moment, but then he looked away. "I know. But I can't tell you everything. Not yet." Emma's chest tightened. "Why not? What is it you're afraid of?" Liam stopped walking, his expression shifting. He let out a deep sigh before speaking again. "Because if you knew everything about me, you might not want to be around. You might run. And I can't risk that." Her heart skipped a beat as she tried to process his words. "You think I'd run? You think I'm not strong enough to handle the truth?" Liam turned to face her, his eyes filled with a mix of fear and vulnerability. "It's not that. It's just I've made a lot of mistakes. And I don't want you to be dragged into them." Emma's mind raced as she looked at him, feeling the weight of his words pressing down on her. She didn't know what it all meant, but she knew one thing: she wasn't ready to walk away from him. "Not yet." "Then tell me," she said softly, taking a step closer to him. "Tell me what you're hiding, Liam. I'm not going anywhere." But Liam didn't respond. Instead, he pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly as if afraid she might slip away. And for the first time in a long while, Emma felt a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, they could make this work. But there was still a part of him she didn't understand, and she was determined to find out what it was. Days passed, and despite the tension that lingered in the air between them, Emma couldn't help but feel more connected to Liam than ever before. Every time they met, there was a deeper understanding between them, but something still felt incomplete. Liam had promised to tell her everything, but every time they got close to talking about it, he would back off, leaving her with even more questions. And she knew it wasn't just about his business anymore, it was something bigger, something from his past he was hiding. One evening, Emma sat at home, staring at the small sketchbook on the table in front of her. She had been so focused on Liam and his secrets that she hadn't had much time to focus on herself lately. She picked up her pencil and began to sketch, the familiar motion soothing her mind. It wasn't until the doorbell rang that she snapped out of her thoughts. Emma stood up quickly and walked to the door, opening it to find Liam standing there, his expression serious. His eyes met hers, and for a moment, neither of them spoke. The silence between them felt heavier than ever before. "Can we talk?" Liam asked quietly, his voice tinged with uncertainty. Emma's heart skipped a beat. She stepped aside, letting him in. "Of course," she said, trying to keep her voice steady, even though she could feel the weight of the moment pressing on her. He walked into the living room, pacing slightly as if he was trying to gather his thoughts. Emma followed him, her eyes never leaving him, waiting for him to speak. "I've been avoiding telling you the truth," Liam started, his voice low. "I didn't want you to get caught up in all of this. But I realize now that it's not fair to you, and it's not fair to us. You deserve to know everything." Emma's breath caught in her throat. She had been waiting for this moment, but now that it was here, she wasn't sure if she was ready to hear what he was about to say. But she had to know. She needed to know. "I'm listening," she said softly, her voice steady, though her heart was racing. Liam stopped pacing and turned to face her, his eyes filled with a mixture of fear and regret. "I'm not just some tech guy, Emma," he began, his voice shaky. "I'm the CEO of a major tech company. My company is valued in the billions, and I've built it from the ground up. But it hasn't been easy. I've made enemies, I've done things I'm not proud of. And my past, it's messy. I didn't want you to be part of it. I didn't want you to think I was just some rich guy trying to buy your affection." Emma felt her breath hitch. She had suspected he was hiding something big, but this? This was beyond anything she had imagined. The man she had been getting to know wasn't just a simple tech entrepreneur, was someone with power, influence, and a past full of complications. She swallowed hard, trying to process everything he had just told her. "You're telling me you're a billionaire? The CEO of a tech company?" Liam nodded, his eyes never leaving hers. "Yes. But it's not just about the money. It's about the pressure, the expectations, the people who want to see me fail. It's a constant battle, and I've kept everyone at arm's length because I didn't want anyone to get hurt because of me." Emma felt a mixture of shock, confusion, and understanding. She had always been drawn to him for his kindness, his honesty, and his vulnerability. But now, the truth was in front of her, and it was more complicated than she could have imagined. "So all this time," Emma said, her voice trembling slightly, "you've been hiding who you really are?" Liam looked down, clearly ashamed. "I didn't want you to see me as just another billionaire with an agenda. I wanted you to see me just me. Not the title, not the money, not the past." Emma paused, thinking about everything he had just revealed. There was so much she still didn't understand, but one thing was clear: Liam wasn't just some man trying to hide behind a false identity. He was someone who had been trying to protect her, even if it meant keeping his true self hidden. She walked over to him and took his hand in hers. "I don't care about your money, Liam," she said softly. "I care about you. The man I've gotten to know, the man who's been kind and genuine. That's all that matters to me." He looked at her, his expression softening, but there was still doubt in his eyes. "But what if it's too much? What if my past is too messy for you to handle?" Emma shook her head, squeezing his hand. "We all have our messes, Liam. It's not about perfection. It's about being real with each other. I want to be with you, not because of your money or your status, but because I see who you are, and I like who you are." For the first time in a long time, Liam smiled, a genuine, relieved smile. "I'm sorry I kept this from you," he whispered. "But I'm glad you're still here." Emma smiled back, her heart feeling lighter than it had in days. "You don't have to apologize. We're in this together now, no matter what." As they stood there, holding hands, Emma knew that they still had a long way to go. But for the first time, she felt like they could face whatever came next together. Weeks went by, and Emma and Liam continued to build their connection. With each passing day, they grew closer, navigating the complexities of their lives and the secrets Liam had shared. Emma had become more at ease with his past, but there were still moments when the weight of his world seemed to press down on both of them. Despite this, Emma felt a deeper sense of trust and a growing love between them. She had always believed in finding someone real, and with Liam, she had found that. But life, as it often does, had a way of throwing challenges their way. One afternoon, Emma was working at the cafe, the familiar clink of cups and chatter in the background providing some comfort. She had just finished serving a table when she spotted a familiar face walking through the door. It was Liam, but he didn't look like himself. His usually neat appearance was disheveled, and there was an intensity in his eyes that unsettled her. As he walked toward her, she noticed the tension in his posture. "Liam?" Emma asked, her voice filled with concern. "What's wrong?" He gave her a tight smile, but there was something in his eyes that made her heart skip a beat. "I need to talk to you," he said softly, glancing around the cafe. "It's important." Emma's stomach dropped. She led him to a quiet corner, away from the bustling crowd. "What's going on?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Liam took a deep breath before speaking, his eyes fixed on the table. "There's been a situation at the company. A business deal that's gone wrong. Some people are making threats. And I'm afraid it's not just about the company anymore. They know about you, Emma." Emma's heart pounded in her chest. "What do you mean, they know about me?" Liam looked up at her, his face serious. "I didn't want you to get dragged into this, but it's too late now. They'll come after anyone I care about. I can't let that happen to you." The words hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. Emma could feel the fear creeping up her spine. She had never expected this kind of danger to be part of her life. Her hands trembled as she reached across the table, grabbing his. "You're not getting rid of me that easily, Liam," she said, her voice steady despite the panic rising within her. "We're in this together, remember? Whatever this is, we'll face it together." Liam's eyes softened as he squeezed her hand. "I don't want to put you in danger," he said quietly. "I never wanted you to be a part of all of this. But it's too late. They're already watching." Emma took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. "Then let's make sure they know we're not afraid," she said, her voice firm. "You don't have to fight this alone." There was a long pause before Liam nodded. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I never should have kept you in the dark about all of this. But I promise, I'll protect you. You're not alone in this." Emma reached up, brushing a stray lock of hair from his face. "I know. And you're not alone either." The next few days were a whirlwind. Liam had pulled back from the public eye, focusing on the business threats looming over him. Emma stood by him every step of the way, even when things seemed impossible. She knew this wasn't just about business anymore. This was about them, about building a life together despite the forces working against them. One evening, after a long day of meetings and tense phone calls, Liam returned to the apartment they had started sharing. He looked exhausted, but when he saw Emma waiting for him, her smile made everything else fade away. "How are you holding up?" Emma asked, walking over to him. She could tell he was worn out, but there was something comforting about seeing him home. Liam sighed deeply, running a hand through his hair. "It's been a rough few days. But I'm just glad you're here. I don't know what I'd do without you." She wrapped her arms around him, pulling him close. "You don't have to do it alone, Liam. We'll get through this, together. Just trust me." He held her tightly, his face buried in her hair. "I do trust you, more than anything." The weight of the world didn't magically disappear after that moment, but there was a sense of peace that settled between them. They were a team now, facing whatever life threw their way. And for the first time in a long while, Emma felt like they could overcome anything. Over the following weeks, the threat slowly began to die down. Liam's business was still facing challenges, but with Emma by his side, he felt more confident than ever that they could rebuild and move forward. The bond they had formed, despite all the odds, had only grown stronger. And one evening, as they sat together in their apartment, Emma could see the exhaustion still lingering in his eyes. But she also saw something else: hope. A future. A future with him. "I'm not going anywhere, Liam," Emma whispered, looking up at him with a soft smile. He smiled back, his eyes full of emotion. "Neither am I," he replied. They sat there in the quiet, their hands intertwined, knowing that no matter what came next, they would face it together. And that was all that mattered. As the days passed, Emma and Liam found themselves in a rhythm. The tension that had once gripped their lives began to ease, replaced by a sense of stability that they had both longed for. The business threats had subsided, but the emotional journey they were on was just beginning. Liam had opened up more than he ever had before, and Emma could see the man beneath the layers of walls he had built. The man she had fallen for was kind, deeply protective, and fiercely loyal. But still, there was something she couldn't shake, something that lingered in the back of her mind. Was their love truly enough to withstand the challenges they would face, or was there more to Liam's past that he hadn't yet shared? One evening, as they sat together on the couch, sipping tea and talking about the future, Emma couldn't keep the question from escaping her lips. "Liam," she began, her voice soft but steady. "I know you've been through a lot, and I know you're trying to protect me. But I can't shake the feeling that there's more to your past that you haven't told me. I'm not trying to push you, but I need to know if I'm going to be able to handle it when it comes." Liam's expression softened, his eyes filled with something she couldn't quite read. He took a deep breath before speaking, his voice low and thoughtful. "I wish I could tell you everything, Emma. But some things, they're not easy to explain. The people I've had to deal with, the decisions I've made, it's not just about business. It's about protecting everything I've worked for. But more importantly, it's about protecting you." Emma nodded, her heart racing. She understood his need for secrecy, but she also couldn't help but feel like the silence was a barrier between them. She wanted to be there for him, to share in everything that made him who he was. But she needed to know that she wasn't just standing beside him in the dark. "You've already given me so much, Liam," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "You've let me in, and I've seen the man you truly are. But I need to know everything, or I'll never feel like we're truly standing on the same ground." Liam looked at her for a long moment, his gaze heavy. Then, finally, he nodded, his expression weary. "All right," he said quietly. "You're right. I can't keep hiding this from you." He leaned back against the couch, taking another deep breath before continuing. "There was a time when I had to make some difficult choices. I wasn't always the person I am now. I had to build my company, sure, but I also had to fight for my position. And along the way, I made enemies. Powerful people. People who wouldn't hesitate to use anything they could against me." Emma listened intently, her heart pounding in her chest. She had known there was more to his story, but hearing him say it out loud made it feel all the more real. "I'm not proud of everything I've done," Liam continued, his voice faltering. "But everything I've done to survive. And I'm not just talking about the business world. There are people out there who would do anything to destroy me, to take everything I've worked for. And I can't let that happen. Not again." Emma sat still, absorbing his words. She had always known Liam was a complex man, but hearing the rawness in his voice made her heart ache for him. She had known there were shadows in his past, but now, they were coming into the light. "I don't want you to carry this burden alone," Emma said gently, her hand reaching out to touch his. "Whatever it is, we can face it together. You don't have to protect me from it." Liam turned to her, his eyes filled with gratitude and something else, something deeper. "I'm trying, Emma. I'm trying to keep you safe. But I don't know if I can ever truly let go of this fear that everything will come crashing down around us." Emma squeezed his hand, offering him a reassuring smile. "You don't have to be afraid anymore. I'm with you. We'll face whatever comes next together." He smiled back at her, a small, genuine smile that made Emma's heart flutter. For the first time in a long time, Liam seemed to relax, his shoulders dropping as the weight of his secrets seemed to ease. Thank you, Liam whispered, his voice thick with emotion. I don't deserve you. You don't have to deserve me, Liam, Emma replied softly. You just have to be you. And I already love you for who you are. The rest of the evening passed quietly, the two of them sitting in the comfort of each other's presence. Emma knew that there were still challenges ahead, but for the first time, she felt a sense of peace in her heart. They had come so far, and together, they could handle whatever came next. Liam had shared his truth, and now it was time for them to move forward. As they sat there in silence, Emma knew that their journey was only just beginning, but it was a journey they would walk together. The days that followed were filled with a quiet sort of peace. Emma and Liam had finally reached a place of understanding, a place where their bond felt stronger than ever. Emma found herself spending more time at Liam's apartment, the two of them sharing little moments that made her feel like they were slowly building something real. But as much as she felt their relationship growing, there was still a part of her that feared the other shoe would drop. What if this was all too good to be true? What if the danger Liam had warned her about was still out there, waiting to tear them apart? One evening, as they sat on the couch watching a movie, Emma felt the weight of his hand in hers. She knew there was something else coming, something Liam hadn't shared with her yet. She could see the way his gaze sometimes drifted off, his mind clearly elsewhere. But tonight, he seemed more present, more relaxed, and Emma was determined to ask him what was bothering him. Liam, she began softly, looking up at him, I know you've been through a lot. But I need to ask, are you still worried about the people from your past? About what they might do? Liam looked down at her, his expression darkening for a moment. I'm always worried, he admitted quietly. I can't let go of the fear that they'll come for us, for everything I've worked for. It's not just about the business anymore. It's about you, Emma. I can't lose you. Emma squeezed his hand tighter, her heart aching as she looked up at him. You won't lose me, Liam. We've come this far together. We can keep moving forward, no matter what happens. Liam gave a small, grateful smile, but there was still a hint of uncertainty in his eyes. I want to believe that. I want to believe in us, in this. But there's something I haven't told you, something I've been trying to avoid because I don't want it to ruin what we've built. Emma's stomach tightened as she sat up straighter, sensing that what he was about to say could change everything. What is it? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. Liam paused for a long moment, his gaze shifting as if he were weighing his next words. There's a person I've been avoiding for months now. Someone from my past who, let's just say, they've been trying to control me, trying to control my company. And now, they're making their move. I thought I could keep them out of my life, out of ours, but it looks like they're not going to stop until they get what they want. Emma felt a cold shiver run down her spine. She could see the fear in his eyes, the same fear that had been there all along, even though he had tried to hide it. Who is it? What do they want from you? Liam took a deep breath, his jaw clenched tightly. They want power. They want control over everything, me company, my legacy. And they're willing to do anything to get it. This person is dangerous, Emma. They've already hurt people in the past, and I don't want you to be next. Emma's mind raced. She had known there was more to Liam's story, but hearing it like this, seeing the toll it had taken on him, made everything feel so much more real. She could feel the weight of it all, the danger, the uncertainty, and yet, despite it all, she felt a strong resolve rising in her chest. I'm not afraid of them, Emma said firmly, her voice filled with determination. I'm not going to let anyone take you away from me, Liam. We've already been through too much together. Liam looked at her, his expression softening. I never wanted you to be involved in all of this. I've kept you in the dark because I didn't want to drag you into the mess I created. Emma shook her head, her heart swelling with affection. I'm already involved, Liam. I've been involved from the moment we met. I'm here for you. We're in this together, no matter what happens. For a moment, Liam was silent, his gaze fixed on her. Then, slowly, he leaned forward and kissed her forehead, a soft gesture that spoke volumes. You don't know how much that means to me, he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. Emma smiled, her heart lighter than it had been in days. I do know, Liam. I do. As they sat together in the quiet of the evening, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that the storm Liam had been running from was finally catching up with them. But she wasn't afraid. Not anymore. With Liam by her side, she knew they could face whatever came next. The road ahead might be uncertain, but one thing was clear: they would face it together. The next few days were filled with a strange sense of anticipation. Liam and Emma continued to navigate their lives, trying to keep things normal while the storm Liam had feared loomed closer. He had kept her in the loop about his past and the threats against him, but there were still things he wasn't ready to talk about. Emma didn't push him; she understood that he needed to handle things in his own way. But deep down, she could feel the weight of everything bearing down on them, and the uncertainty was beginning to take its toll on her too. One afternoon, as they sat in the quiet of Liam's apartment, the phone rang. Liam glanced at the caller ID before answering it, his expression immediately shifting to one of tension. Emma could feel the change in the air, the way the room seemed to tighten around them. Liam, she said softly, her voice filled with concern, who is it? Liam put his hand over the receiver for a moment, looking at her with a serious expression. It's my lawyer, he said quietly. We need to talk about what's happening. It's escalating. Emma's heart sank. She had known this moment was coming, but hearing it out loud made it feel real. She watched as Liam stood up, walking across the room to the window. His back was to her, but she could see the tension in his shoulders as he listened to whatever was being said on the other end of the line. She stood up and walked over to him, placing a hand on his arm. Whatever it is, Liam, she said softly, we'll face it together. You're not alone. Liam turned to face her, his eyes dark with concern. I know, he whispered. But I can't help but feel like this is the beginning of something I can't control. I've tried to protect you from it, but I'm not sure how much longer I can. Emma shook her head, taking his hand in hers. You don't have to protect me from this. We're in this together. We'll figure it out. The conversation on the phone continued for several more minutes, and when Liam finally hung up, he seemed drained. He ran a hand through his hair, sighing deeply. It's worse than I thought, Liam said, his voice low. They've already made their move. They're trying to get a hold of my company through a hostile takeover. And the worst part is, they're using someone close to me to do it. Emma's heart raced. Who? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Liam's eyes met hers, and for a moment, she saw a flash of pain in them. My brother, he said quietly. He's been working with them behind my back. I didn't want to believe it, but I have the proof now. He's been playing both sides. Emma felt the shock of his words sink in. Liam's brother? It was hard to process. She had known there was tension in Liam's family, but she hadn't realized it was this deep. What does this mean? She asked, her mind spinning. Liam took a deep breath, trying to steady himself. It means everything I've worked for is at risk. I have to stop this. I have to figure out how to stop my brother and this group from tearing everything down. Emma nodded, her heart heavy with the weight of his words. She knew this was bigger than just Liam's business now. This was about family, trust, and everything he had fought for. But there was no going back. They were already in this together, and there was no way she was going to let him face it alone. Then we'll stop it, Emma said firmly, squeezing his hand. You don't have to do it alone. Liam's eyes softened, and he nodded, grateful for her unwavering support. I don't know what I'd do without you, Emma. As the days passed, Liam worked tirelessly with his lawyer to fight the takeover, preparing for the battle that was about to unfold. Emma stood by his side, offering support when he needed it, but also keeping him grounded when the stress started to get to him. They spent late nights together, going over plans and strategies, and Emma could see the strain on Liam's face as the pressure mounted. But even in the midst of all the chaos, there were moments of peace between them. When Liam would let his guard down, when he would smile at her and hold her hand, Emma knew that they were stronger than ever. No matter how hard the battle got, they would face it together. One evening, as they sat together on the couch after a long day, Liam turned to her, his expression serious but filled with gratitude. "I'm sorry I brought all this into your life, Emma," he said softly. "I never wanted you to be part of this." Emma smiled, leaning her head against his shoulder. "You didn't bring it into my life, Liam. It's our life now. And I wouldn't have it any other way." As they sat there together, Emma realized something. She had never been more certain of anything in her life. They had been through so much already, and yet, they were still standing strong. Whatever the future held, they would face it together. And in that moment, she knew they could take on anything. The battle that Liam had been dreading was finally upon them. The hostile takeover of his company was in full swing, and his brother's betrayal had shaken him to the core. Despite all the legal battles and strategies they had put in place, the enemy was ruthless, and the pressure on Liam was growing by the day. Emma stood by his side every step of the way, offering unwavering support and love, but even she could see the toll it was taking on him. He was exhausted, both physically and emotionally, but through it all, he never once pushed her away. Instead, he relied on her more than ever, and that made Emma feel stronger than she had ever been before. One afternoon, after another grueling meeting with his lawyers, Liam walked into their apartment with a heavy heart. His face was etched with exhaustion, and Emma could see the weight of the world bearing down on him. He dropped his briefcase onto the couch and sat down, rubbing his temples as if the headache from the stress would never go away. "Liam," Emma said softly, sitting beside him. "I can see you're at your limit. You don't have to do this all alone." Liam let out a long sigh, his shoulders slumping. "I feel like I'm failing. No matter what I do, it's never enough. My own brother turned on me, and now I'm risking everything. The company, the life we've been building, all of it." Emma gently took his hand in hers. "You haven't failed anyone. You've fought for what you believe in. You've fought for the people you love, and that's more than anyone could ever ask for." He looked at her, his eyes filled with doubt and fear. "I don't know how much longer I can keep doing this, Emma. I feel like I'm losing everything, and I'm afraid I'm going to lose you too." Emma smiled softly, leaning in to kiss him on the cheek. "You're not going to lose me, Liam. You've already been through so much. We've been through so much. And no matter what happens next, we'll face it together." Liam gazed at her, his eyes filled with gratitude, but there was still a lingering sadness. "I don't deserve you," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. Emma shook her head, brushing a strand of hair from his face. "You don't need to deserve me, Liam. You just need to be you. And I love you for that." The days that followed were a blur of legal battles, tense meetings, and sleepless nights. Liam fought tooth and nail, using every resource he had to protect his company and everything he had worked for. But through it all, Emma never left his side. She was his anchor, the one person who reminded him that there was more to life than just business. Then, one evening, as they were sitting together in their apartment, the phone rang. Liam's face went pale as he answered it, his eyes narrowing as he listened intently. Emma could feel the tension in the air before Liam even said a word. "It's over," he said quietly, his voice a mixture of relief and exhaustion. "We did it. The takeover has been stopped. It's over." Emma's heart soared with relief. She rushed over to him, throwing her arms around him as he pulled her close. "You did it, Liam. You fought for everything, and you won." Liam smiled weakly, holding her tightly. "We did it, Emma. I couldn't have done it without you." They stood there for a moment, embracing each other, knowing that the hardest part was finally behind them. They had fought through the storm, and now, they could finally breathe again. The next few days were filled with celebration and the quiet joy of knowing they had made it through the worst of it. Liam's company was safe, and they could now look forward to a future without the constant threat of the past hanging over them. One evening, as they sat together on the balcony of their apartment, watching the sunset, Liam turned to Emma, his expression softer than she had ever seen it. "I don't know where I'd be without you, Emma," he said, his voice sincere. "You've been my strength through all of this, and I can't thank you enough." Emma smiled, her heart swelling with love. "I've always believed in you, Liam. We've come a long way, but we're just getting started." And as they sat there, watching the colors of the sky change, Emma knew that no matter what the future held, they would face it together. They had been through the storm, and now, they were ready to start building the life they had always dreamed of.